On the 3rd of September 2013, Creative Assembly released their most anticipated title yet. This was the sequel to arguably the best Total War game ever made. Me personally, I think Rome 1 is still the best Total War game ever made, and when Rome 2 was announced, it's safe to say the excitement was through the roof. People were throwing their children out the door saying, quick, sell their kidneys, we need the money, we need to buy this game, this is all that matters at the moment. Even grandma can do without a few tonsils, she doesn't need them. We need the money to be able to afford this game because we have to get it on release. I mean, that analogy probably doesn't fit with the masses, but I feel like that was definitely something that I had to act upon during the time. It was a rough time with the family, and I do miss my grandma. Nonetheless, Rome 2 was coming towards its release date. But what happened? Upon release, it was an absolute mess. The game was riddled with bugs, scattered with a lack of polish, and it went down in history as one of the biggest gaming disasters of not only that year, but in the decade. Having the massive hype behind it and then not delivering not just in gameplay but in playability as well. Not even being able to play it for some people. If it was such a disaster, why do I love it so much? Why is Rome 2 fast becoming one of my favourite Total Wars ever? And why in the last few days have I sank nearly 30 hours into it? Well, it's not just me. Speaking to people and looking on forums and my subscribers, everyone seems to love Rome 2 now. Of course, there'll be exceptions, there'll be people still salty about the loss of their relatives, but it's something that has managed to completely turn it around from the release because of how hated it was and to where it is now. So in this video, I'm going to be looking into why that is, what happened and what changed, because it wasn't too late. Creative Assembly turned the game around, making Rome 2 a lot better than you think. Upon release, Rome 2 was critically acclaimed for being, if I use a scientific term, shit. I mean, what was that? Look at this, and this, and this, and what? I don't even know how to explain this. Surely someone actually played the game before it was released? It seemed like there was a board meeting where they just thought they were developing a game like Minecraft, you know, releasing the early stages with maybe a few blocks here and there, but they create the rest of the game publicly while people were still playing it and people would be able to see the development. And that's not really how the Total War games have worked in the past. People expected a finished game, and you can tell it didn't really go down too well with the Total War fans. I think Angry Joe explains it pretty well, and that's saying something since he still gave it a 6 out of 10 upon release, and upon release this was not a 6 out of 10. I would probably give it a wet fish out of salmonella. But back in the day when the game was first out, I remember watching a video by Reynolds Sanity on why Rome 2 failed. This video highlighted all the issues that the game had upon release, but were they all fixed? Did Creative Assembly manage to pull it out and fix it? Well, we'll be going on to talking about the Emperor Edition a bit later, which I think is one of the biggest reasons it was saved. But let's talk a little bit about the time period. Well, the time period, of course, is set in ancient Rome. It's set during the time of the Empire and, of course, all their enemies as well. While they're the most powerful people on the earth, it wasn't like it was an easy going for Rome at the time. They had many, many issues, and as soon Attila that came after it showed that that wouldn't last forever. I feel like the time period for me is something that really keeps me going back. Rome 1, as I've said to many people, I was at a Total War event the other day and I was speaking to some YouTubers and talking about Rome 1, and for me, Rome 1 was what got me into history. I went and studied ancient history at A-level last year, and I wouldn't have done that if it wasn't for Rome 1. It's what gave me not only into PC gaming, being one of the first PC games that I played on Steam and then getting me into the PC gaming market in general, but also ancient history, knowing about the empire, the troops, the military tactics, who ruled Rome and how they did it and how it lasted for so long. And the game that did that was Rome 1. And it keeps me going back. And of course Rome 2 was set in a similar time period and it kept me going back. Yes, Attila had better army controls, better graphics and movement, and arguably some better sieges and things. Napoleon had awesome new mechanics corresponding to the new musket gameplay, same with Empire, although there's a few bugs in that one. Shogun was a breakthrough in individual unit animations and how it looked, but for me, it's Rome 2's setting and its feel. I think it's something very special when there's a feel to a game, a nostalgic feel maybe, but a feel nonetheless and an air when you're playing it, but you can't describe it. If you're able to pin it on its head, it doesn't quite have the same effect as that feeling when you play it but you don't know what it is that keeps making you play it. And Rome 2 has that for me now. It didn't when it first released, but then when it got better, I played it and I got a lot of hours. I maybe got 200 hours in it, and then after about a year or two, I've come back to it, and it's incredible. I mean, let's look at the graphics back in 2013. For that time, Rome 2 was probably one of the biggest breakthroughs in graphical fidelity. Shogun 2, arguably, yes, looked beautiful, and probably was the biggest breakthrough, but then Rome 2 just expanded upon it. For 2013 graphics, especially in a strategy game, it was incredible. I mean, maybe it wasn't quite what they showed in the pre-releases at E3 and presentations, but I think we've all got over that at that point. The game to this day still holds up, even without graphics mods. I mean, I absolutely love the Blood and Gore DLC, and I know there's so much going on about DLC, how people hate the Blood and Gore DLC. Why can't you just put Blood and Gore in the game? They wouldn't sell as much if they put it in the game, because they'd have to rate it higher than a 12, and it wouldn't sell as well, so they're putting it as an extra option for people, and I mean, it's like 3 or 4 quid, so who can complain about that? The campaign map is absolutely beautiful. The way it's set out and the way it plays. Seeing the Alps, the rolling hills, the grassy flatlands, the deserts, Britain. I'm putting Britain in a separate category because Britain just is cool. I don't know why. Actually, I do know why, because we're not French. The way that this dynamically played into, how the terrain affected your army's movements and the battles you went into. Seeing the terrain on the campaign map, and then when you go into the battles with people, you actually see it there. When you sally forth out of a city, or when you're fighting an enemy near a city, you see the city in the background, and it looks absolutely incredible. It feels like you're there. If you're fighting in Egypt, you can see the pyramids in the background. The way that Rome 2 was able to transition between the campaign map and sync it straight up with the battles was something that hadn't really been done in a Total War game before. But what about the Emperor Edition? Why do everyone keep talking about that, and why do I think that that saved it? Well, if anyone doesn't know, the Emperor Edition was something that came out a couple of years after the release of Rome 2. Did a complete overhaul, fixing bugs, completely just sorting the game out, optimization, pretty much everything. It added a few new things here and there, but other than that, it was mostly just in order to completely overhaul the game in terms of actually making it what it should have been upon release. Emperor Edition was almost a re-release for Rome 2, and it went down extremely well. I don't think you can buy the original Rome 2. Now, maybe there's some weird way that you're able to torrent the original Rome 2. Not that I recommend torrenting. Just get the Emperor Edition, because why would you want the buggier version of this game? Just get the Emperor Edition because it's the incredible version of it. I mean, the added things back, like, I mean, when Rome 2 first released, I know this seems a bit weird now, but when it first released, your Roman troops and your troops couldn't just throw Pila from standing. They would only throw their Pila when they're in a charge, which was something that a lot of people just couldn't fathom. That was in Rome 1, a game that came out in 2004, and all those years later they took it out for some reason, and they completely changed the way you play it, and it didn't go down very well. But in the Emperor Edition, it added that back in. Now you're able to stand in line with your shield walls and throw the Pila at people. Guard modes were all added in back, and sorting out unit collision issues, which, as you can see by a lot of the gameplay and all the bugs, that was a little bit of an issue. But the Emperor Edition also led forth to campaign DLC and other DLCs. The Total War DLC has always been a bit of a controversial topic. People say it's completely overpriced. People say some of it's completely unnecessary. I would think that a lot of the faction packs and things are a little bit unnecessary. Why not just put that in the actual note? I know it's about getting money because it is a business at the end of the day, but some of the factions being locked off, a massive faction like Sparta being locked off behind DLC to play as, was completely unexpected by me. You would expect Sparta and Athens to be in the game at the start that you could play as and not have to buy it separately. Without the faction DLCs, pushing them away, the campaign DLCs I would say are a lot more successful. They add whole new varieties like Caesar in Gaul, being able to do different things in there, different quest lines, different missions that you can do, and different dynamics to the game that you're able to play as that take you away from the classic Total War and push you into a bit of a different gameplay style. So if you've already played the normal campaign, you can go back to these DLCs, and they're very cheap now, and you can get a whole new gaming experience out of it if that's what you want to do. It adds so much more content to this already content-full game. Now, this next point is something that I really talked about on my Why Rome 1 Did Something Incredible video, and this is about unit variety. And I think that the Rome series of Total War has done unit variety better than others. Perhaps it's been topped by Warhammer now, since Warhammer's Warhammer, and I think there's nothing more variety-full, jam-packed units type game than Warhammer, because they have basically anything you can think of. But in terms of the historical Total Wars, Rome was always the one that did it the best. Medieval Total Wars had very similar troops for each faction, very similar units, because it was mostly set in Europe, and back then you used the best of the best, and you used what each person had. There was so much more trading, there was so much more connections between them, so the British knights would be fairly similar to French knights, except from obviously running away and morale and all that sort of stuff. Physically though, and the equipment that they had, but in ancient times, there was so much more variety. There was basically no similarities between playing as Rome or playing as Egypt, playing as Britannia or playing as the Seleucids. Yes, of course, each culture had similarities to other cultures of the same, so the Seleucids and the Bactrians, the Spartans and the Athenians had some very similar troops and units. There was so much variety between them. Also, bring about war dogs, which is always a favourite, even though they're completely useless and they don't do anything in battles, and you get and spend so much money on them, and they don't actually do anything, and you end up just getting slaughtered and sometimes just running away or getting elephants, which seemed like a good idea to start with, but then the enemies just fire flaming arrows at them and the elephants are like, no, not doing this anymore, and they run over your general and kill him. I'm not salty about that. Not salty about what's happened is in the past. But then going on to ship battles, talking about something new, they added in ship battles in Rome too. Okay, yes, at first, like the rest of Rome too, I think everyone wishes that it just wasn't there and that it was hidden behind a curtain, but when it was fixed, ship battles was something incredibly new. Ramming into other ships, a whole new dynamic to the battles. Having tactics where you could actually do battles in sieges, on land, and in ships, and in some battles they'd have all three at once. You'd be able to land on the beaches and storm a castle or a city. You'd be able to ram each other's ships from the side or the front, and you'd also get artillery on ships, and you'd be able to sink each other's ships. I know it was a bit annoying for me at the time, but there was a time where in a battle there was some skirmishers on the other team. These were just some easy ass slingers, and I had a ship full of heavily armoured hoplites, and these slingers managed to just, sling my hoplites, run away, sling my hoplites, run away, and then finally ram my ship, sinking the whole ship. Just proving how in ship battles it's a whole new dynamic to a land battle. That would have not been able to happen if that was on land. My hoplites would have destroyed these weaker troops. Because they're on ships, as soon as they're able to destroy my ship, my hoplites all drown because of their heavy armour, adding a completely new way to play the game. Now, talking about new ways to play the games, we're going on to mods. The massive variety of mods were incredible. Yes, granted, many of them have been bug fixes and patches and things, graphic upgrade hauls, but there's also some really cool ones, like adding new factions in. The always unlocked faction mod is always a nice staple for the Rome games, because, yeah, Creative Assembly can be a little bit stingy, but that sort of makes sense why they want to do that, because you want to focus on the main factions. All the side factions and the sub factions, people don't really care about, and there's only so much you can do. But the all factions unlocked mod was something that I always used to use, since I'd be able to play as these weird small factions that maybe only had 1 or 2 cities at the start, and then I'd be able to just steamroll through and slowly build up, and it would be a bit more of a challenge, but it's so much more rewarding when you actually get to the end. And starting as such a humble small faction that you wouldn't be able to play as in the main game because they were too small, with this mod you have to play as them and show the bigger empires who was boss. But since going back to it, I've been playing the campaign non-stop, having so much success and failure at the same time. It keeps me wanting to go back. Not necessarily always doing well, but not necessarily getting destroyed all the time. Having little snippets of losing and then bringing it back is the push and pull that a game needs, and that Rome 2 has finally perfected. Adding tension and release is what makes you go back to a game and what makes you carry on playing it. Not making it too easy, but not making it too hard at the same time. When I came back to it, of course, I started back as Rome, and I did okay to start with, and then I started to get destroyed, so I started a new campaign as Egypt. And almost instantly I fell, but now I settled on a campaign as the Seleucids, and I'm doing so well at the moment. Yes, I'm always being tested. I'm never in a moment where I'm like, okay, I'm pretty powerful, I'm safe at the moment, but I'm always doing alright. I mean, my strength is causing vast amounts of other factions to wage war on me, and I'm constantly fighting on multiple fronts, but I'm still just about winning. They'll attack me and we'll have a massive battle to the death. Most of the time I'm extremely outnumbered, but using pikemen I'm able to block off choke points and destroy their cavalry and infantry, and then archers alike. But slowly yet surely I'm going from grasping to survive from bombardments, then starting to push the enemy back, taking their cities and eventually wiping them out. Having this push and pull constantly throughout my campaign map, and it's really addicting, and I've really found my love for this game again, and it's really kindled my love for the franchise again, which for a game that came out in 2013, isn't too shabby. Now, I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. What are your thoughts on Rome 2? Is it still a mess, you think, or has it sort of got a soft place in your heart now like it does with me? Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't already. And until then, I will see you in the next one.